Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. Time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Miss J.F. Posthumus, introduce herself to our listeners and viewers at home.
I am J.F. Posthumus. I write sci-fi, fantasy, urban fantasy, and you can find me at Three Ravens Publishing and on Amazon.
Okay. And if you hear me calling her Jenny, because that's her name, she just publishes as JF. But I've talked to her enough because she also does photo manipulation covers for some of the anthologies. So we will remind you that it's JF when you look for her later. But with that out of the way, so how we first found them, she sort of spilled the beans on that one through the Three Ravens Discord. I'm sure there were memes involved because everything I do involves memes. It's like my secret language. We've really devolved back to hieroglyphs essentially with memes and emojis.
That is
We're
true.
like going backwards in language. But
that is very true.
The ironic thing is this will be one we actually record close to airing. Normally that is not a thing, but we've rescheduled this one a few times between my crazy life and my kids and her crazy life and her kids. And then once the weather and once it was the Wi-Fi, apparently my modem was like archaic and they had to fight the dinosaurs off to replace it for me. It was bad and expensive. Why don't they give this to us for free? That would be nice. I mean, we're using it to access their internet that we pay for. And then on top of that, they charge you for the box and to come out and replace the box. I'm like, you're paying every time you look. I'm a little bitter. I'm still paying that bill right now.
Got to get the money somehow.
All right. So before we get too deep into this one, the religion questions. Now, you've been on a guest on the podcast several times, and you've answered all of the standard ones. So I am theming these as closely as I can to the book we're going to talk about later. So, Passengers, Valerian, or Stardust?
I honestly have not seen any of those. I really am not a huge sci-fi person. I mostly do Star Wars, Star Trek, and a few other things, not many.
Is there anything about those that speak to you in a way others don't?
Honestly, I've just never been really huge on sci-fi. I've been more fantasy and this is going to come as a complete shock, I know, murder mysteries and mysteries. Those have really been what I've always grown up with. And, my parents would do Star Trek, and then I got introduced to Star Wars. And I have watched The Fifth Element. And I've watched some sci-fi because of Mystery Science Theater 3000, but I mean, I'm not quite sure how well that qualifies, though, because they're riffing it the whole way through.
I mean, it still counts. You still watched them, sort of. Okay. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Legend, Twilight, or The Shape of Water? None of those either?
Never Twilight. Never. And the other two, I know Legend of the Seeker, but that's pretty much it. I've only read a couple of those. Just give me Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek, and I'll be happy. The others, no. I'm very sheltered. I admit it.
Okay, so Legends is kind of classic. You haven't seen that one? It's the 1985 movie. Are you too young for that one? Is that what this is about?
No.
It's got Tom Cruise in it. And Tim Curry.
No, it's a matter of I am just very picky about what I watch. The groans from my husband on what I won't watch is uh, amusing to see because, yeah, very large eye rolls and groans and you are such an old lady when it comes to movies.
For me, like Legend was definitely where I started wondering if unicorn steaks would taste good, because that's the whole point of the movie is they're trying to kill the unicorns for their horns. Um, for the Lord of Darkness is so. I mean, it started as a joke, but I mean, we grew up in the South. We'll eat just about anything. We'll try it at least once. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's I don't know. I thought those were kind of iconic. I figured everyone had seen them. Guess
I
not.
avoided Twilight like it was the plague. I just no, and the other two just never appealed to me.
Okay. All right. And since you've been on a few times and answered your favorite dinosaur, we're going to mix it up a little bit and ask you what your favorite zoo animal is.
Ooh, Komodo dragon. I love those things.
Okay. For me, it's the wolves, and that has been in the news lately because did you follow
The dire wolves, yeah.
the dire wolf situation, which they say it is from extinction, but they're not really because they're not pure. They're
Yeah.
mixing two species that are thousands or two dire wolves that are thousands of years apart in age for specimens, and then they had to mix it with a hybrid. They basically created a hybrid because they mixed it with a real wolf.
I think it
Uh,
was the gray wolf. No, timber wolves. They
it
used
was the
timber
timber
wolves.
wolves, yeah. And so now they're puppies, and they're thinking of doing it again. And every time you tell someone, they're like, "Didn't we make 6 movies about why this was a bad idea?" Referencing
Yeah.
Jurassic Park. And every commentator that's talking about it is quoting Malcolm. You've spent so long wondering if you could, you forgot whether you should. But it's definitely
What
interesting.
but what everyone is ignoring or not paying attention to, however you want to phrase it, is the fact that while they were doing the dire wolves, they were also working on creating, however you want to phrase it, red wolves. They were basically um, doing it to try and help the red wolf population to help it come back. So while they were working on the dire wolves, they were also working on the red wolves.
Yeah, but those have even cloning isn't the same thing as what they're doing with the
No.
red wolves isn't the same as what they did here. Cloning here at least are existing species. A lot of the cattle industry has cloning involved in it
Yeah,
for genetic
but it's
strains.
the
If they exist now and you're just helping more of them be born, even that isn't the same thing as trying to bring something back. They also did the woolly
woolly
mice, where
mammoth,
they merged the woolly mammoth with the mice to give some mice woolly
woolly
advisors.
mice.
They're calling it the woolly mice. I don't know. Like this is the slippery slope to transhumanism, where we start getting like designer babies and Gattaca and
And they've already got that. They're already doing designer babies in other countries.
oh, I didn't know that was a thing. I heard rumors, but I just assumed it was publicity stunts.
Nope. Nope. If you look into it, other countries have been doing it. And to a degree, they do it here, I believe, in the States as a way to avoid certain genetic problems. Like they'll go in and
Did
uh,
you?
pick and choose, like if the embryos or whatever. I don't know all the details. I don't remember it, but they'll go in and check to see which embryos have certain genetic
Yeah, if genetic
abnormalities,
yeah,
and they will,
if those
yeah,
abnormalities, I can speak, I promise,
yeah,
are in your family, that you can sort of try to weed those out.
yeah,
But no, this is something they have done. The CRISPR babies. CRISPR is a form of gene editing. A
yeah,
doctor in China did it, trying to make humans resistance to AIDS. He didn't tell the moms before he did it to them, and right after he made that public announcement, he disappeared. So my guess is he's in a shallow grave somewhere, and China sent his family the bill for the bullets. But
yeah.
I would be interested. I mean, it's unethical as hell to experiment on people. But
Oh,
now
yeah,
that it's
absolutely.
done, I am curious to see how that came out.
Hard to tell. I mean, it's hard to tell how that, because I doubt they'll ever publish
Yeah,
that one anywhere.
and rightly to a point. Like I get it because it's they have autonomy as people and they shouldn't be lab experiments and all of that. I'm just the idle curiosity in me has me wondering
Yeah.
how that came out because I mean it's definitely an interesting concept. China has said they've been doing the super soldier thing for a while too. Again, whether that's just hype for propaganda's sake or are they really doing it, I couldn't tell you, but it starts to get interesting to think about when you look at the potentials for storytelling are just huge.
Yeah.
Um, so it's definitely interesting. If you've got opinions, dear listener, since it's current events, join in because you're going to be getting this episode Sunday at midnight or Monday morning in the wee hours. So if you've got opinions, jump in, weigh in, tell us what you think. Have you been watching the hoopla? I think Joe Rogan called it despicable and playing God when he talked about this one. He was a lot more emphatic than I am because I don't know. There's value in being able to stop extinction level events, but there's the unintended consequences as well. So it's an interesting conundrum. So with that out of the way, do you have a second favorite zoo animal besides the Komodo dragon? No. Did you freeze? Did you have a second favorite zoo animal? All righty.
Um, not really.
Okay.
I mean,
I always like
there's not a lot of zoos around.
that's fair. I always liked the panda bears just because they're chonky and funny looking. All right, so no
Hopefully,
secondary. It's okay. I'll clip that portion. Should be okay. So no secondary. I always like the
okay.
pandas because they're just cute and chonky looking. I don't know. Pandas have always been kind of comical to
That's
me.
fair. That's
Um,
fair. We have a drive-through safari not far from here, and they have alpacas and Bengal tigers and a bunch of other animals. And it's honestly,
tigers.
of all of those, I loved going on the ride with the kids because you got to feed them, and they had the alpacas that would come over. Were they alpacas or llamas? No, I think they were llamas. Anyways, whatever the little furry things were, they kept coming over and eating from the pails, and that was a lot of fun. But
Nice. I don't think I've ever done like a drive-through safari type deal. I don't think we've had those. I've done straight zoos, but I don't think I've done that. Might be interesting to try.
Natural
Um,
Bridge drive-through safari.
I'll have to check that out because I want to actually see the natural bridge. That's one on my to do list. I want to go up there
Yeah.
and visit it. And somewhere up in the mountains is the Black Snake Meadery, which I also want to check out.
Mhm. Check out the drive-through safari here in Virginia. It is a lot of fun, and I think your kiddo would enjoy it. I know my two do. So
All right, I will add that to the to do list for vacation time as soon as I win the lottery. Because with gas prices, oof. All right,
yeah,
and because we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
tea and sweet
Sweet
tea.
iced tea is you can't go
Oh
wrong.
yeah,
Diabetes in a cup, I love it. My dentist doesn't love that I love it, but what are you gonna do? My lately my go-to is I've just been doing coffee with a little bit of the syrups, the flavor syrups with the no sugar and actual whole milk instead of the International Delight creamer I love, mostly because it's like half the calories, so I can drink twice as much, which I'm absolutely loving. And I found the trick to get the smoothness that I like is just heavier on the milk. I accidentally overpoured and added 8 ounces for my 24-ounce cup. So it's like an 8, 16, yeah, a third of it is milk. That's the perfect consistency for me, especially since I brew my coffee extra strong to compensate. And it's just rich, creamy. I dig it.
yeah. I cannot do coffee. The acid in it just messes with my system way too much. No gallbladder. Yay.
That would do it. There are
Yeah.
some low acidity coffees, but at that point in time, I mean, stick with the tea and the Coke, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah. I have my youngest hooked on tea. So unless I have it in a container like this, he will come over and steal my tea or anything I'm drinking. He will steal it and run off with it and drain the glass.
so if you don't have a gallbladder, because I know my mom had hers removed, does that mean bacon's a problem for you too?
Um,
Like greasy meats?
a lot of grease, yeah. If I eat anything with a lot of grease in it for too long or too much, it will make me miserable. Um,
So, like summer barbecues are like the bane of your existence. It sounds like you go to the
I have
area.
never been huge on barbecue, so that's not a problem.
Okay,
But oddly enough, spices, like anything that has a heat to it, it'll really. I can't eat any peppers, for example.
okay.
Like banana peppers, like this. You know how tame they are. I can't even eat those. They will make me miserably sick. I mean, vomiting sick. So
Well, that's no good.
it really sucks. It really does. So
So you
I have to. I
so
have
do
to
you
be
have
careful.
so does that mean you have to cook a lot from scratch to get away from the stuff that would upset your system?
Um, it means I have to be care. I have to read the ingredients. You would be amazed at how many frozen meals and uh, dishes have peppers in them, like just the red peppers. And most of the time, I either have to pick out all the peppers or just not eat it. And there are a lot of spices where if it's made, once it's made, it's not a problem. But if you reheat it, suddenly there's a lot of heat to it and I can't eat it.
Yeah, some foods do really really well as leftovers, and some not so much.
Yeah. The cold actually is what brings out the capsaicin or whatever, however it's pronounced, but the heat in the spices. The When it gets cold, that's what brings out the heat in it. So when you reheat it, you have way more heat, spice.
That tracks. I know some, like I said, I do some meals where like I cook it once, and then when I have it in leftovers, the flavor is just there more. That makes sense.
Hmm.
Like I make a fried ham and potatoes, which is my great great grandmother's Great Depression recipe,
Yeah.
and I know when we cook it the first time, it's not quite as um, what's the word? It's still a little moist, I guess.
Yeah.
But when I reheat it in the air fryer, it gets that crispiness.
Hmm.
Like it's just perfect that way. So like I said,
Yeah.
I know some dishes are like that. So okay, you've got company. All right, so
Actually, he's actually outside the door, believe it or not.
it's okay. Um, so obviously, not everybody that likes to read and is into the nerdy things. Not everybody that does that is decides to be a writer. So, what made you decide to go from just being a fan of all the things to writing your own stories?
Um, I think I've always been writing. I remember in kindergarten, I had actually drawn a story about a snake. Now, mind you, I hated snakes. I was terrified of them. But I drew this little story about a snake without words, and the teacher was like, "You can actually follow the story. You can read the story of this little snake." And from there, I just eventually learned to write stories, and that's always been a um, that was also always a strong point in school. So I guess I've always liked writing, and I just decided to try doing it as an adult to be a writer. And I eventually got lucky enough to get something published, and then I got something else published, and here I am, multiple books in.
Okay. Is there a specific genre or a specific trope that you prefer when you're telling stories?
Well, I grew up on mysteries. After I learned to read with fairy tales, I started reading mysteries. My parents loved mysteries. Agatha Christie, Earl Stanley Gardner. If there was a murder mystery TV show or movie, they would watch it. Um, I just, I was reading Boxcar Children books in kindergarten, and I just graduated from that to Nancy Drew, and then to like Agatha Christie. And if there's anything that I enjoy, it's a good mystery. So I guess from everything I've read and everything I've enjoyed, I just have to. I ended up writing mysteries. So almost everything I've written has a mystery or a body of some sort involved.
So, do you prefer your mysteries to have a specific setting when you tell them?
Um, Not a particular setting, but I've just found writing a mystery is just easier for me. It's just where my brain goes. You know, when you're pretty much raised on murder mysteries, it's kind of ingrained into you as to how, you know, who did it, you know, how was it done, where was it done. It's kind of like Clue, which also is a great movie, I might add. Great movie and great game.
It's always the butler in the antechamber. I don't know. I always blame the butler.
um, there is actually a D&D version of Clue, and we own it.
Oh,
Oh yes, oh yes, and it's fun. Instead of the mansion, I think it's like a dungeon, and you have all the different races. You have different weapons. It's so much fun.
and where did you get this D&D version of Clue?
I think we originally found it at Target, and I'm pretty sure you can get it on Amazon.
Interesting. I'm going to have
Yes.
to look for it. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, now
Um,
you do. Now you have to look for it.
is it essentially the same game, just different setting, or is there
Yeah,
something?
yeah. It's the same basic game. You know, you
Is
have to
it is
figure
it
out
the same
who did
company?
it, with what weapon, and where.
Same company even? Is it like the reskin Monopoly sometimes will do, where it'll be like sports teams or whatever, or is it?
I
Um,
think so because it's actually Clue. It's actually Clue on the box.
okay, I'll have to check that out and see what I can find. I'm curious now. Do you play a lot of board games, or you prefer like video games, or just reading or
Um,
watching? Like, what's your nerdy hobby then?
oh, before we moved into the house, we would have, well, okay, really, it was before the plague hit. We would have a game night like every other weekend with our friends. And then when the plague hit and the whole, oh, no social gatherings and all of that, it kind of, you know, died.
All right. So you were telling me, I'm going to edit this out. So if it sounds a little bit repetitive, dear listener, we apologize. But you were telling us before the pandemic, you guys used to do game nights. Can you start from
Yeah.
there? And we'll clip the
Before the
dead air.
pandemic, we would do game nights every other weekend. And of course, when you couldn't socialize, it kind of died off. No pun intended. And now it's been a little more difficult to get friends to come over. But of course, we also have the two young kids who are both Attention seekers, but that's fine. Our friends know what it's like, and they get it. So we kind of shifted from having game nights to playing games on the Xbox. So we have different games. Uh, we have completed every version of the Cluedo that you could get for the Xbox. We've uh, unlocked everything for that, which was a lot of fun. We play Star Wars with Cal Kestis, and we have done everything on Star Wars Outlaws. And I actually love playing chicken with the crate dragon in that game. It's a lot of fun. So we've kind of shifted to playing on the Xbox versus board games, but we have a lot of board games too.
Okay. Well, now that now we got that out of the way, enjoying our conversation about our nerdy past, dear listener, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this book series.
Atlanta cabbie by day, amateur auto duelist by night. Ricky Turner is living the dream. That is, until he wakes up in a Gold Cross facility to discover his last match was more than a failure. It was a fatality. Indebted for the cost of the clone body and reboot, Ricky heads back to the arena to do the one thing he knows how to do: drive offensively. But at the rate amateur matches pay out, it'll take several lifetimes to pay his debt. Luckily, the AADA has announced a new nationwide road rally designed to challenge even the hardiest of auto-dueling teams. Dead Man's Run. Can Ricky and his clandestine crew traverse the wasteland from Atlanta to Sturgis, survive against packs of cannibals, roving biker gangs, and amateur auto-duelists out to make a name for themselves? Welcome to the world of the Car Warriors Auto-Duel Chronicles. Tales from the freeways of the future, where the right-of-way goes to the biggest guns and death sports rule the airwaves. From clandestine highway battles to primetime arena combat, jump behind the wheel, follow the fast-paced action, and never forget to drive offensively.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude, dear listener, dear viewer at home. And so without that out of the way, we are here to talk about the Corruption Universe series, which right now has 2 novels out in it. I'm going to put up the covers while we talk. What would you say the rating of these 2 novels are, since it's a series right now?
What do you mean by rating?
Like if you want to know what age it's appropriate for someone to read or listen to the audiobook, these stories.
Hidden Motives would be more for adult. Okay, yeah, I know some high school kids read adult romance novels and adult novels like Stephen King. If you can read Stephen King or, any adult novel, you'd be fine. There is absolutely nothing really on the page that you wouldn't see on. Actually, it's tamer than what you'd see on Game of Thrones, to be honest. Both of them, and Scales of Injustice has even less on questionable on the page, unless you have a problem with a corpse.
I mean, as long as there's no romancing the corpse, we're good.
No, just the corpse.
We saved that for the vampire lovers. Boom. But that was a callback to the joke from the era of the Twilight, which you never watched, where everyone was like, "It's like, do you want the animal or the dead guy?" Obviously, there were other words, people, but this has got to be family friendly. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying by not saying what I'm saying. All right. So it is generally speaking intended for an adult audience, kind of
Yeah.
PG, well, not PG-13, maybe rated R, which is 17 and up ish, right around there. So
I
mid
mean,
high school on probably would be okay.
yeah, I mean, I know plenty of high schoolers who read the full on page romance where there is nothing left to the imagination whatsoever. And I know there's plenty of kids who read Stephen King and, Tom Clancy type stuff, James Patterson. If you're watching, HBO, you're okay reading this. You're probably going to be like, this is tame. I don't have anything really on the page that would be problematic for anyone who wants the lighter end of spice. And really, that goes for hidden motives because that's the romance. Scales of Injustice is your murder mystery. Oh.
Okay. So let's do, since they're two separate books, is it the same character throughout? So they're a linked series, or is it's because there's romance in the first one? Is it a series of standalone novels tied together by a central theme? Like, how would you describe the series?
Hidden Motives is in the same universe by way of the aliens, the Calasians. Scales of Injustice takes place on the planet Calais. It's got an entirely different cast of characters from the ones from Hidden Motives. Hidden Motives is when the humans meet the Calasians.
So book one is probably more fairly called a prequel almost.
Yeah, it's pretty much the prequel. It's the introduction to the Calasians. It's the first contact type thing. The main character, Alyssa, she's an assassin who has outlived her usefulness with the human military. So they sent her off to basically be killed to set up the Calasians. And there's a few hidden things, a few other people involved in what's going on. I'm not going to give spoilers. Um, but it's really the introduction to the Calasians.
Okay.
It's the romance, the commander and Hidden Motives, McNard. He is the one character that really ties the novels together. Yes, Alyssa shows up in Scales of Injustice, but she's not as prominent as McNard is.
Okay. Is this a sci-fi universe where Earth is forgotten and they don't know where it is, like as Star Wars did and other stories have done?
Oh, no. Earth is very much known. It's a planet. It's still very, hustling, bustling. The military, because we always have to have a bad guy, they're sketchy. They have a lot of sketchiness going on because you're always going to have someone being the sketchy person. It's not everyone, but you got to have the bad guy. And the IMD isn't well loved throughout the universe. They have allies that are not allies to the Calasians. Um, so yeah, but no, Earth is very much still around. They're still doing the same things they always do by causing trouble. Yeah. I honestly wrote Hidden Motives at the request of one publisher. it didn't pan out, so that's why it went over to Three Ravens. No harm, no foul with that publisher. Currently doing things for that publisher, actually. So we're, no hard feelings on any party about it not working out. But Scales of Injustice is takes place in the future after Hidden Motives. And yes, there is a corpse in Hidden Motives because someone is always going to die in my novels. For Scales of Injustice, the main character is Violetta. She is half human, half Calasian. And the plot for it is she is a homicide detective, and she's really good at her job. A veritable hermit on her planet where, technology is everywhere. But she focuses on work and then just goes home. And she discovers there's corruption in her department. So she goes to the chief of police, except she finds his corpse instead of the chief living. And she's accused of his murder. And she has to work with her old high school sweetheart and a few questionable people to find out who really killed the chief and prove her innocence. Because on Calais, cold-blooded murder is punished by death. Why kill in cold blood when you can kill in duels? Duels are how everyone resolves their problems on Calais. And it's the old way of using melee weapons, swords, staffs, things like that. And, you have a problem with someone, you challenge them to a duel, and whoever wins, that's the end of this argument. That's how they settle everything. So if it's legal to kill in a duel, why kill in cold blood?
Okay, so what was the origin for the concept that is the corruption universe?
Honestly, I wanted to write a sci-fi, and I had the idea, and I ended up sitting down with our eldest son, Chris, and started talking to him about, the problems that police officers have. The cracks in the system, how they can have a case tied up perfectly with the best bow ever, T's crossed, I's dotted, everything just laid out beautifully. And then when it gets to court, it all comes unraveled. Someone, somewhere, somehow just drops everything. And it is a mess. And, it's out of their hands. And, we talked about the problems they have and pretty much first responders also. And I wanted to create a universe where those problems were fixed, where, you didn't have that, where, if, they had, problems with, stress or anxiety or any sort of mental health problem, they could get it without a problem. And on Calais, it's more shameful to not seek help than to seek help. And, it's really a universe created to fix all the little problems that you can find in, health care and with, the problems officers have with their jobs. And, sitting down with Chris, and my husband, who helped a lot with co-writing, we created this universe that is really how it should be. The military is over top everything. There is no negative, I'm not even sure what the right word is, illnesses, I guess, for lack of a better term. There's in the military, there's no racism, no racial superiority, there's no xenophobia, and the list goes on. All of those things are not allowed because they're all put through psychological evaluations. And anyone who has any of those is treated. That's not to say they're not there, because they are. Anyone with any sort of intelligence, they're going to have those regardless. It's going to be there. But on Calais, they try to minimize it or get rid of it as much as possible. And, the military is over top of everything. The police service is an extension of the military. And, we just created the universe of Calais because, we were around Chris so much. We would talk, and we knew what problems, he ran into and how frustrating the job can be. And I wanted something, I wanted a world where that wasn't the problem, so that if any of these first responders were to read the novel, they'd be like, I want to live in this place. I would enjoy this world. And when we've had the opportunity to talk to law enforcement officers and first responders, that's been the reaction we've received is, where, how can I move there? Because that's, kind of an ideal world for them. So that's really where the universe came from. And of course, the story was honestly, I have no clue how it originally came. I'd come up with an idea, and I still have the notes for it. That's like so far, to the left field of what I ended up with that it's not funny, but I had the characters and a very, very base idea of what I wanted to do. It started off with, okay, she has she discovers corruption in her department, and her captain is part of this corruption. Who can she go to? Okay, the chief of police. Okay, she goes to the chief of police. She finds the body. She's accused of murdering him. How does she prove she didn't do it? And that's where I went. And there was a lot of pausing in the middle of that novel and going, hey, Chris, I have a question. What evidence? One of the questions I had for him was the question of evidence. And, he gave me suggestions. And there were a few times where he was like, I don't know. I'm going to have to ask the chief. Who fortunately knew we were authors and was more than willing to answer his questions. So it was fun times. But I was very fortunate that I had him around to answer the questions, because otherwise I'm not sure how well this story would have ended up otherwise.
And you avoided the standard issue with people that write those kind of stories, and you didn't end up on a government watch list for asking the questions because you knew somebody who knew somebody.
Yeah. Oddly enough, we actually did have the FBI drop by here, and after his death, and you know, they didn't say anything to us about being on a watch list or we're watching you. So I think we're okay.
That is encouraging. Could be a lot worse. Although there's that running joke about the mystery writer up in Washington State somewhere who got caught because the detective was a fan of her books and recognized she used one of the plots in her books to murder her husband. If she hadn't already published it, she might have gotten away with it and be like, it was inspired by how
Possible. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so obviously at its core, it is a mystery story. How many books do you expect the series to have?
Currently there are a total of 5 with the publisher. There's 4 with Violetta and her beau, Malik. And then there's 1 that is a spinoff that ended up being a romance, but it's also a sort of fish out of the water type story. It's got a lot more duels in it, but it's a fun story. But there are a total of 5 that are, including Scales, that are going to be in this one, and eventually there'll be 3 more afterwards.
Does the 5 include the book 1?
Actually, that would be 6.
Okay, so
yeah,
by the time you're done, it'll probably be between 9 and 10 novels.
At least, yeah. Because I've got a little over 50,000 words on the first in a trilogy after Depth of Injustice, which is the 4th Injustice novel. And then that one's supposed to be a trilogy. We'll see how well that goes.
I mean, you could go the Bane trilogy route where 3 books becomes like 5, 10, whatever. So is the bad guy in these standalone? So obviously, like there's the murderer because you're solving a murder in these novels. Mm-hmm. So obviously they're the bad guy. Well, not obvious. Sometimes the murderer could be a good guy for whatever reason. But so you've got the antagonist that is the murderer that you're investigating. Is there an overarching bad guy as well that ties all the stories together?
There is a plot that, because when I first started writing Scales, it was going to be a trilogy. And there was going to be a overarching plot involving Violetta, her father, and some other people. And that still is one of the overarching plots, and it's resolved in Balance of Injustice, the 3rd one. And there's actually there's another plot that carries through Depth of Injustice, and it's a little more, it's not as obvious, and I don't want to give too much away because it really starts in Scales of Injustice, and I can't save it so much because it'll give it away. But it's not so much a complete bad guy, so much as one thing that just keeps carrying over because of what one person does. And if I can get the trilogy after the separate trilogy done, hopefully that one will wrap everything up completely. But if it doesn't get done, it's also not a big deal because it doesn't affect anything that I've written. So, yeah, I can't give out too many details because I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
No, and that's the hard thing when you're talking about mysteries is how do you pimp it without spoilers? And I get that. We
Yeah.
don't see as many sci-fi mysteries. I'm sure there are some out there. So I haven't had to deal with skirting that many authors around spoilers. But would you consider this police procedural style?
Actually, yeah, it absolutely could be a police procedural because everything that happens with Violetta has to do with her position as first a homicide detective and then at the end of Balance, she gets a sort of promotion and it again, I can't give too much away because I don't want to spoil it, but she does get a promotion and I kind of shifts her job a little. And, she still remains an investigator. And
Okay.
everything she does is pretty much involving a murder mystery of some sort. um, the third one, the murder mystery kind of gets a little sidelined by her getting attacked from practically the beginning of the novel until the end. But, that's what happens when you anger certain people on the planet. They
Okay.
kind of get mad because of what you're doing.
So because this is sci-fi, what kind of tech are we looking at?
I think I had it like 2500s, so quite a few years in the future, a couple centuries in the future. Like nanites and biosuits. Violetta and Malik, who are half human, half Calasian, end up with being guinea pigs for the military with new biosuits that basically remove all of the waste and extra fat that a body doesn't need by nanites. And you don't have to use the bathroom because the nanites do it for you. Don't ask me how it works. It's nanites. It's tech.
So you're just waving your hand and calling nanites magic. I get it. You solve the Enterprise
nanites.
because the Enterprise is the ship famously where the schematics never had a bathroom designed.
Yeah.
But okay.
It's nanites. You have diagnostic beds where the diagnostics kind of float in the air above the beds. You have hypos. You have all sorts of other technology that you wouldn't that come with the future. They're service weapons do not overpenetrate at all. So there's no problems with that. Calasians, as long as they're on the planet Calais, have gifts. Every full-blood Calasian has a gift. It doesn't necessarily have to be a defensive or offensive gift. It could be, being an artist or an actor or a singer or, things like that. And, those who are half Calasian, only the females have a gift. And I even touch on biology a little bit because of Violetta and Malik. They're both, half human, half Calasian. And on by society, those who are half generally go with a full native, but they break societal norms by hooking up. So that creates problems of its own, and it's a fun time. I put them through the ringer. It's great.
Would you live there if you could?
Yeah, actually, I would. The downside is Calasians don't have pets, but if an animal decides that it wants you to be its, you know, owner, caretaker, whatever, that's fine. But you don't have pets on Calais. They find that to be problematic because of how it would harm animals and nature. And they're very nature oriented. They have a lot of nature preserves and things like that.
Okay. Is there anything about this universe in these two books that we didn't talk about that you think the reader needs to know?
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, I had so much fun writing them, and I could just go on and on and on about the universes. Um, uh, you know, Violetta, and I don't know.
That's fair.
Um,
I know that Three Ravens is doing the audiobooks. I'm pretty sure Terry K. Job is the one narrating these. Are
yes.
the first two out yet? I know she's been
She's
working on them.
currently she's currently working on Hidden Motives.
Okay.
I still need to listen to the latest two that she's uploaded to give approval. And then I know she's going to be working on Scales of Injustice next. And that's going to be fun because the the character cast is very extensive on that one. So, yeah. I had a lot of fun with all of it. I have a world Bible that is like 50,000 words or around there that I created. And that's for all the novels that I've done. And yeah, it's an extensive universe, it is a very extensive universe, and it was so much fun to do. And I owe a lot to Chris for everything he did to help. So.
Okay. This is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books, so do your part. If someone wanted to track you down on the internet to check out this universe and all your other stuff, where might they find you online?
They can find me at threeravenspublishing.com. There's links there to the books. I'm on Amazon, of course, under J.F. Posthumus. And I am on Facebook under author J.F. Posthumus. And if you find me under Jennie Posthumus, well, I'm there too. So, yeah, that's where you can find me. I think this one is coming out. next week, I think, the podcast.
No, this is coming out on Monday, so it'll
Yeah.
literally be a couple days.
I'm planning on spending a day Saturday at RavenCon here in Virginia. So you might be able to find me there. And I'll be at Green Top, which is it's Vale law enforcement recruiting thing. I'm going to go back and check it out. It's actually a lot of fun because you get to talk to a lot of different law enforcement agencies, including the FBI. They should be there. Last year, the Pentagon security, I've forgotten exactly what it was, but there were people from the Pentagon there, and they had I think it was like a surveillance bus, whatever they're called. If you've ever seen the Leverage episode where they had to find what was it? Someone was going to release a bio weapon in like a subway or something. Anyway, the bus that they used on that Leverage episode, they had one at Green Top, and you could actually go in it and look at it. And they have like other things there that you can go and actually look at and get an up close, view of it, including drones. So that was a lot of fun. So if you're interested in anything like that, research or just to go check it out, definitely worth it. So
Yeah, that's definitely what you would consider required research to do if you're writing mysteries. So, all right, you can find us, a dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTube, the TikToks, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. You can email the show at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, Blasters and Blades Podcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Adam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section, this is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee till it pours out of their ears, people. Then we'll film it and laugh with them or at them, your choice. If you want to get some of that coffee brand coffee for yourself, the link is in the show notes. Use the code PODCASTGRUNTS. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It is a win-win, people. If you are shopping from overseas, you can go to Amazon. We don't get a kickback for that, but put in the comment section that you heard about it from us, and I don't know, maybe they'll send us a Christmas coffee basket or something. I'll take free coffee, right? And with that, I will thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy and absentee co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, we are done. Wait for it.